You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you, even though we're getting off to a disgruntled, little bit late of a start. The program that I use to run the show basically decided to make a whole new overhaul of how everything looks and feels and how you set things up. So I had to do basically learn it on the fly of how to go live. They changed it 100%, like different place, different everything. So anyways, then there's a couple other little glitches, but I won't get into that. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong. The miracle that is Sudbury News Talk each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 is live. So, and it's a miracle with all of the duct tape technology that we have put together that makes this show happen each and every weekday morning. It is definitely a miracle. So I'm glad that we're able to at least get off to a late start rather than not starting at all. And we're looking forward to our focus today, our Friday focus. Friday the 13th, ladies and gents. Friday the 13th, focus on the climate. So that's what we do each and every Friday here on the show. If you're interested in climate, stay tuned. We're going to be unpacking some real climate news for you from our Climate Discussion Nexus organization that brings you their weekly newsletter readout. And today's better than usual. So if you are a climate nerd and you're interested in facts and stats and all that, stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned anyways, regardless. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM each and every weekday morning. CKLU.ca. Click on the Radio Player Canada app, download it, take us with you, listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. Also, live streaming at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow the channel, the page. Mainly comment. We'll do our best to read them for those listening. Get them up on the screen for those watching. It's also on demand at those two platforms, along with twitter.com/Sudbury News, and on our news aggregator, our website, sudbury.news. Click on the Sudbury News Talk tab, top right corner, and you can watch us. Mainly, we're glad to have you here, and we're glad to be with you. And with that, just to announce to everybody that I will not be here next week, the whole week. There will be no Sudbury News Talk on CKLU or live streaming next week. I will be on a vacation, and so I'll taking vacation anyways. I don't take my vacations in the summer. I take them in September, because anything you want to do, it's less packed, less booked, better weather, you name it. So I take mine in September. So I won't be here for the next week, and but I'll look forward to coming back immediately following the next week to begin just get back on track kind of thing. So I hope that is okay, and we'll look forward to getting back. So let's dive right in with some weather. We got some news headlines. We'll talk about a letter on the way that the city handles homelessness, a letter to the editor to Sudbury.com. We'll talk about homelessness itself and the encampments that we have going on. I think it's a homelessness local news day and a climate abroad news day today. As much as we might want to be talking about the election in the United States, we talked about it yesterday. I don't know how much more we can talk about it than if you already subscribe to your different news independent news or mainstream media news. You're hearing all about it anyways, so we'll leave that to them, and we'll start off with a little bit of weather, and we'll be back with your comments, news, headlines right after this. Weather brought to you by Duck Check. Currently it is 13 degrees. There's mist out there. Today it's mainly sunny, fog patches dissipating in the morning. High of 28. Humidex 34. So a high of 34 with the Humidex today. Tonight clearing, low of 14. Saturday sunny, high of 28 with the Humidex 33. So hot Friday, hot Saturday. Mix of sun and cloud then on Sunday, high of 28 as well. Another hot day. 27, mix of sun and cloud on Monday. 26 and a 30% chance of rain on Tuesday. 26 and 25 for Wednesday and Thursday, mix of sun and cloud. Look at your satellite here. Pretty darn clear over the skies of northern Ontario. That's your weather for this September the 13th, Friday the 13th, 2024. Brought to you by Duck Check. Give them a call at 705-918-4848. Visit them online at duckcheck.com for all your duck cleaning and inspection needs for their commercial, residential, and industrial services, offering services in Sudbury area and Muskoka areas. Let them know we sent you. You get $100 off your next duck cleaning and inspection. We'll be back with news headlines, your comments, and more right after this. Okay, and we're back. Just checking in with a few people joining us. We have a pretty good group for a Friday. Friday's usually a little thinned out with people starting off the show, but today is an exception. We're just right on track with what we usually have. So good morning, Nana. Good morning to myself and friends, and blessings, everyone. Thanks for being with us today, Nana. Hope you're having a good morning. Judy, first to Facebook. Hope you're having a good morning as well. Judy and Marianne, good morning from Barrie, everyone. And liked and shared as usual. Miles, good morning. Weekend is looking good. And yes, it is. Happy Friday the 13th from Debbie. And Vin, morning to you as well. Monique, good morning, Sudbury. Sunshine emoji. Blessings, everyone, from Denise. Marianne, the day of great luck. Friday the 13th. There you go. Or other people might be saying, what do you mean? That's supposed to be an unlucky day. And a movie franchise to boot. Okay, so Mona, good morning to you. Pat, good morning, everyone. Sunshine emoji. Belinda, good morning. And you go on to say, when someone helps you and they are struggling too, that's not help, that's love. Wow. When someone helps you and they are struggling too, that's not help, that's love. For sure. And one great thing to do if you are struggling and someone does need help, don't hold it back and say, well, I'm struggling, I can't help. Because a lot of times you helping helps yourself. The fact that someone needs your help and you yourself are in need, by you helping the other person is the help you need for what you're struggling for. Kind of like we went foraging a little while back, a couple weeks ago on the North Shore with a guide showing us what kind of plants you could eat, what kind of plants were medicine. And it was interesting to find out, which I already knew, it was just reminding me, that let's say you have poison ivy, a plant, and you know, you come across it and you're having, either having the effects or not. The cure for that poison ivy is within, I don't know how many meters of the plant that's causing any damage. It's kind of interesting that way. And I think it's same in our lives. When we're struggling with something, a friend will come out of the woodwork who needs help. And by us helping them, that's the help we need. Similar to how the Creator has set up all of the plants on the earth. So that way the cure is within feet of the plant that's causing the problems. Well, the friend that's within reach that needs the help is the cure for our suffering sometimes. So thank you for that, Belinda. You always get me on a little rant. Appreciate it. Vin, enjoy your vacation. Oh, thank you very much. And I will, hopefully. You ever take a vacation and then you're like, I need a vacation from my vacation? Most of my vacations are like that. But anyways, I'll enjoy it nonetheless. Hey everyone, beautiful uh, drive from Timmins this morning. That's Jerome, our Northern Ontario or Ontario traveler. Thanks for joining us, Jerome. Appreciate it. Marianne, enjoy your vacation. Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Good morning. Mike, thanks for being on. We'll be talking a little bit about the city and homelessness. So this will be something that is near and dear to your heart that we'll be talking about this morning. So Vin, yeah, perfect. Denise says pets. Their meat-heavy diet is the biggest contributor to their carbon paw prints, which require an abundance of energy, land, and water to produce, and the production of pet food emits huge amounts of planet-warming gases. That's interesting you say that, because I always thought that at some point in time there was going to be an argument set out for that, and that people shouldn't have pets because of their carbon footprint. And I like the way you said carbon paw prints. It's funny. Yeah, let's hope they're not coming for our pets next, right? They're already after the cows and their flagellants, saying that is one of the reasons for their narrative of climate, which we will debunk in one show. So if anyone's wondering about what's going on with climate, this one episode of the Climate Discussion Nexus will debunk everything you thought you knew about climate. It's awesome. I love John Robson. Thanks, Jerome. Well-deserved time off. I appreciate it. Listening to CKLU, back to driving. Awesome. Bob, thanks for being on this morning. I was going to ask you a favor, so remind me to text you after the show. Fun fact, Friday the 13th is known as a bad luck day because the Pope and the King of France ordered the arrest and subsequent deaths of the Knights of the Templar. Yes, I did remember that. I do remember that. On Friday the 13th. A little bit of a history bite from Bob. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Belinda says that's awesome. That's when we take our holidays as well. That's funny. Thanks. Appreciate that, Belinda. Denise, our dogs and cats are becoming food, Yeah, that's a whole interesting thing from the debate, right? And all the memes coming out about Donald Trump saying that. Nana says, was very interesting to read the letter from the PC Fred Slade, which we are going to be getting into this morning, telling it like it is. We will be talking about that right after our just kind of check-in with all y'all. Marianne, perfect weather for the weekend wedding. Wow, the weekend wedding. If it's someone in your family, congratulations. If it's a friend, same thing. It is perfect weather for a wedding, for sure. Evelyn says, good morning, and good morning to you. We had a lynx up in a tree this morning, right above my head. Living in the forest brings beautiful wildlife to me. Wow, a lynx right in the tree above you. That is pretty darn awesome. And Estelle, good morning to you, with a sunshine emoji, smiling. And Denise also says, when I help others, I call it feeding my soul. And that is true. It's so good to just help people, just help. There's some people out there who says, I give and give and give and I never get anything. Okay, well, maybe you're giving maybe for the wrong reasons. And maybe sometimes you got to say no if people are taking advantage of you. That's a whole other thing altogether. That's a whole other thing. But giving because you want to give. And if you have to give, sometimes you don't have something to give. Maybe you just have time and you're able to listen to somebody. Monique, grand rising, sunshine emoji, heart emoji. Thank you, Monique. Hope you're having a good morning. And Penny, good morning. Love the weather. Enjoy your vacation. Yes, I will for sure. You guys, I'll miss you guys. That's for sure. Denise, good morning. Yous all have a wonderful day. Stay safe and healthy. And you as well, Denise. Penny says vegetables use a lot of water. Yes, for sure. You know, if they start coming after us for our vegetables and our pets, and I was already talking about our gas stoves, no more gas stoves, all this crap. Anyways, we'll get more into that later. If you're interested in debunking the current climate narrative, you'll want to stay tuned in a few minutes for our Friday Focus on the Climate. Miles, I remember watching a National Film Board presentation in grade 8, how our planet would be destroyed in 20 years if we didn't change our manufacturing practices. I was in grade 8 in 1973. LOL. Oh, and there's more where that came from, Miles. There's a compilation out there of, the Al Gores of the world, and even before that, Leonard Nimoy saying there's going to be a huge ice age, in the 70s, all this stuff. And again, they always use in 20 years. That way you forget about it in 20 years. They can just keep changing what they're saying. And these are scientists, right? We're supposed to trust the science. Vin, there was a car in the ditch near 126 marker on 44, Highway 144 this morning. You may get held up if you were driving on 144. You may get held up. So that's coming in fresh from Vin. Appreciate that, Vin. Yes, family in Sudbury. So you'll be in Sudbury this weekend. Awesome, Marianne. For a wedding. And it is going to be beautiful. Belinda says, would like to know if any of the immigrants in Sudbury are heading back home because their visas have expired. Sudbury saw a huge influx of immigration, as most of Canada did as well. And I do know it's been known that a lot of the visas will not be renewed or whatever if they're not able to find work or whatever they have to do in order to stay. And a lot of people are going to claim refugee status and things like that. We'll have to see what's happening. Andrew, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us, my friend. Thanks for being on, and thanks for checking in. Evelyn says, yes, my dog was trying to jump up the tree when I realized what it was. I brought the dog inside and just got out of the way. I looked up, and 2 feet above my head, we watched it leave to safety. That is so awesome. A lynx in your tree. That is so cool. Penny, they got rid of all of our manufacturing to India and China. They are now the major polluters for sure. Denise says, remember in 2023, November 2nd, Canada's carbon tax is meant to encourage residents to change their behavior to reduce emissions, such as switching from home heating oil to a heat pump. Good luck with that. I'm sure many of the politicians that voted for that do not have heat pumps. I repeat, do not have heat pumps, including our Prime Minister. I can take that one to the bank, I guarantee you. Nana says, we'll miss you because you always make my day. I appreciate that, Nana. I hope you and your family have a wonderful holiday, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Miles, a big protest across Canada today by international students. Okay, for sure. I could see that. No doubt about it. And if I was them, I would protest as well, because they were probably promised a bunch of stuff that wasn't quite delivered on as well. So they're not the ones to blame. I would just like to underline, they are not the ones to blame. There are those that made the policies and those that helped with the process, and not specifically the people themselves, the students on visas. That's interesting. I'm trying to get this article to come up here, the one that we wanted to talk about, and it's just finally coming up here. It just came up, so we're good. Marianne says if they don't like it here, they can return home. There is a thought. No, for sure, they like it here. They want to be here. That's the whole reason for the protest, right? However, they were promised certain things that weren't delivered on, and it's the fault of the people promising. Fisher up a tree in Hanmer near Skaterboard Park, and Temin in someone's backyard from the Weasel family, a Fisher. Oh yeah, I remember seeing those guys. I can't support the students. For sure, it's a hot topic. It is definitely an issue that was created, a manufactured issue, and now it's here. So like it or love it, we're facing it. So here you go. From Sudbury.News' website, which is our local news aggregator, where all the local news comes in, Sudbury.com, Sudbury Star, CTV, CBC, all in one location. We found this story from Sudbury.com. And it's a letter. PC riding president chides city's passive-aggressive criticism. Province has stepped up to fund homelessness supports, says Fred Slade. I recently read your article. City pushes feds, province to step up their game on homelessness, and I appreciate the focus on this important issue. However, I believe it suggests that the other levels of government had not stepped up to the plate. In the case of the provincial government, this is not accurate. In 2023-24, the Sudbury community received approximately $46 million in mental health and addictions funding. This includes support for 266 housing units provided by organizations like the Canadian Mental Health Association and Independence Center and Network and Monarch Recovery Services. Additionally, Health Sciences North received substantial yearly funding for essential services such as mobile crisis response team, justice safe beds, and addiction support. Additionally, almost $9.5 million has been allocated to child and youth mental health services, ensuring early intervention and ongoing support. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has also provided $1.88 million for the community housing programs, as well as $7.42 million for homelessness prevention programs, representing 66% increase in annual funding. Remember how, different members of our local government were saying that the province is responsible for these things, and they've kind of backed off and they need to step up and help. Well, Fred Slade's making a pretty good argument here that they have stepped up with a 66% increase. Tens of millions of dollars allocated towards this. And so, yes, kind of the article gave a bad rap for the province, and he's just kind of going to some facts here. While continued efforts are necessary, these investments show a strong commitment to tackling homelessness and its root causes in Sudbury. It's crucial to consider all sides of the story when discussing progress on homelessness and mental health in our community, and it is equally important to recognize the assistance provided rather than passing the buck in a passive-aggressive manner. Only then can we work collaboratively with each other to address these complex issues. Done letter from Fred Slade on how the province has stepped up and provided money for programs that can be delivered here in our city. And on that note, there's a couple stories about that. More supports for Sudbury's homeless population. This is from CTV, Northern Ontario. More tents are going up in Energy Court at an encampment near the former safe consumption site trailer in Sudbury. Just going to click on it and see if it's just a video or if it's a story, because that goes right along. I guess it's a video. So we shall just wait for that and see.
Board employee pricing is
no,
back.
the volume comes on.
Where you pay.
Usually the volume is off. But it is what it is. So let's see what CTV has to say about this issue of more help needed for homelessness.
More tents are going up in Energy Court at an encampment near the former Safe Consumption Site trailer. The city plans to repurpose the trailer and use it as an overnight warming center, slated to open November 1st.
Right now, we know of 208 people who are living outdoors in encampments within our community across 40 locations all across the city. This number has doubled since last time at this year. It's very concerning.
We talked to one woman who lives in a tent in a bush area close to downtown.
I think the key, like I said, is just out of sight, out of mind. As long as you're not bothering anybody and they don't really see you, they kind of leave you alone. But it's a challenge as well for like theft of all our stuff, and people just raid our tents.
She says having no overnight washroom facilities is demeaning.
I hope the city decides to put up some porta potties. That's the main thing. It's a little degrading having to go to the washroom outside.
The city says at this time there are no plans for the city to provide porta potties at encampment locations. Overnight washroom facilities will be available on October 1st when the Samaritan Center extends its hours, and there will be washrooms at the warming center at Energy Court. The city confirms it does offer garbage pickup at encampments, with community partners coordinating cleanups.
As needed, really, we try to keep track of how locations look, and we try to provide that service whenever we can.
The city says it's awaiting word on federal funding for this upcoming winter for resources to support the growing homeless population in the city. In the meantime, council has agreed to support increased services. Alana Everson, CTV News, Sudbury.
So we appreciate Alana and her report on the story. Much appreciated. And Trevor, thanks for being on, my friend. And thanks for the emojis. Much appreciated. I will not decipher. I will not translate. I will not try to do that. But I really appreciate you being on. And Liz as well. How sad, for sure. And good morning, Liz. Thanks for being on. This is why our government needs to be all debunked. What a mess. What a freaking mess they've done, and we're paying high taxes. How ridiculous. Now, speaking of debunking, I apologize for just moving on, and maybe not the most smoothest transition in the world, but today is our focus on the climate. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with our homelessness situation in Sudbury and how we're going to tackle that as ongoing. But here you can see Fred Slade and his op-ed in the article in Sudbury.com. Appreciate that for sharing some facts. And you would think reporters would do that, because that's why we have reporters. But sometimes we have to step up as citizens, and that's why there is this feature with Sudbury.com, Sudbury Star, where you can actually just write a letter and they publish it, which I really appreciate the fact that they have that. And I think that kind of keeps some accountability happening. And speaking of accountability, our climate discussion nexus, John Robson, talking about what we see in the news over and over and over, and it must be true. It must be true. But wait a minute. Let's just kind of take a step back on this and ask ourselves some questions and about the climate. So Friday's focus on the climate. Enjoy, and we'll be back right after this.
For the Climate Discussion Nexus, I'm John Robson with the latest readout video from our Wednesday Wake Up email newsletter, to which you should subscribe as well as watching the videos as avidly as the Brummies do. Which, if you aren't one, I maybe need to explain means people from Birmingham in the UK, who are 31st on our all-time city watch list. Also on our watch list, but in a different way, is how the usual suspects called Monday, July 22nd, 2024, the, quote, hottest day ever on Earth, end quote, smash show shattering the previous record for blistering death heat set on Sunday, July 21st. As Matthew Wilicki retorted indignantly, quote, we are currently still in an ice age, and for the vast majority of the last 550 million years, the planet was significantly warmer, end quote. So no, not the hottest day ever, even if we leave out, say, the Hadean eon. And even considering only much more recent conditions, most people do not seem to be living through anything approaching record temperatures. Sure, the Earth is a big place, and someone somewhere is setting some kind of weather record every day, and would be even if the average temperature, rainfall, or anything else hadn't changed in 5,800 years. But really, things appear quite normal, even cool, in many parts of the world. Yet the media keep yelling stuff like, quote, "World breaks hottest day record again despite El Niño's end," end quote. Seriously, what's going on? At least the Canadian press only called, quote, Sunday, then Monday, the hottest days humans have measured, according to the European Climate Service, end quote. But even so, it's rubbish. And the first reason why is that we're meant to believe it was precisely 17.15 degrees Celsius globally on Monday. But nobody knows how warm it was to 2 decimal places anywhere, let alone everywhere, on that date, never mind in the past. Tell us how hot it was when Caesar was assassinated to 2 decimal places, even just in the city of Rome, or just in the Forum. Bosh. Non potes dicamus. Hey there, just a quick reminder about subscriptions. We're this close to 100,000, so if you have already subscribed, thank you very much and enjoy the programs. If you haven't, click the button here, get us to 100,000 and beyond. And now, back to me. And another thing, mathiness can be intimidating, but supposedly that figure is the daily average, which means they must be claiming that they measured the precise temperature to 2 decimal places everywhere on land and at sea at every single second of that day. Phooey. And then there's this business about humans have measured. Measured how? The reason we have fairly confident assessments of the approximate temperature back when dinosaurs roamed the Earth is that we measured it using proxies we trust. Which is also how we know that it was warmer during the Holocene climatic optimum when civilization flourished and writing was invented than it is today or was on that Monday. Oh, measured by thermometers, you say? But Monday's pseudo-record wasn't measured by thermometers. Instead, it was, quote, provisional satellite data, end quote, that most ironclad of statistically absurd guesses dating back to 1979. Besides, you could believe satellite measurements are a lot more exact than they are without falling for the notion that, quote, Monday was 0.06 degrees Celsius, 0.1 degree Fahrenheit, hotter than Sunday, end quote, worldwide. Because again, nobody, including the European Copernicus Agency that made this guesstimate, knows what the temperature is anywhere to 0.06 degrees Celsius, let alone what it is everywhere. You couldn't even measure it in your living room with that degree of precision. And another thing, if it's hotter than the hottest thing ever, everywhere on Earth, why isn't it hotter anywhere on Earth? The United States has the best long-term thermometer readings anywhere outside the Central England temperature data set, and a famous map of the US by Chris Martz, using NOAA data, shows that the vast majority of states set their all-time records back in the 1930s, and only 3 have done so in this century. Before the authorities tampered with the data, we mean. Apparently, the key to the whole panic is that it was 6 to 10 degrees Celsius warmer than normal in Antarctica. And how do they measure the temperature there to 2 decimal places? Well, it's only 14.2 million square kilometers, or 5.5 million square miles, nearly half again as big as Europe, and it contains fully 137 weather stations. So, Bob's your double decimal. Or, they made it up. Also, as those of you with long memories by climate alarmist standards will recall, Canada's unusually harsh wildfire season in 2023 was touted as proof of global warming. The quiet American one was ignored, as it might have raised awkward questions about what different planet the US was on. But now Canada is again burning, or so people keep saying. But, at the risk of spoiling the fun with evidence yet again, we feel constrained to point out that, as of late July, there were nearly 1,000 fires burning in Canada, which is perfectly normal. That one particular fire devastated the historic scenic town of Jasper, in the imaginatively named Jasper National Park, is certainly regrettable. But blaming it on climate change or global heating is exploitative, especially given all the warnings to federal authorities that poor forest management in the face of a mountain pine beetle infestation was creating ideal conditions for exactly such a disastrous blaze, which now also looms over the even more iconic Alberta mountain resort town of Banff. But the main point is, Canada is big, it's rugged, it's often remote, and it has very many trees. So there have been what used to be called forest fires here since the invention of the tree. So, if 2024 turns out to be a normal year for Canadian wildfires, or a quiet one, will it have any bearing on what 2023 did or did not prove? Or will they just start yelling that Canada's 2025 fire season will finally prove that we are all going to die a fiery death? And here's a classic climate one rule for thee, another for me example. After some Just Stop Oil activists got jail time for blocking public roads and obstructing people's access to things like critical medical appointments, two writers in The Guardian said, quote, "Let's stop locking up our truth tellers," end quote. Yet one of the writers, Dale Vince, quote, has multiple times called for the incarceration of climate deniers, end quote. Now that's ugly. Also, inquiring minds at the New York Times want to know, quote, "Can Harris finish Biden's climate agenda?" end quote. No. Next question. Oh dear. It's, what is vampire summer from National Geographic? And the answer here is, quote, "Researchers say the rising summer heat is keeping us indoors more days," end quote. Actually, it was a lot hotter in the US in the 1930s, and back then almost nobody had air conditioning, which is what's really keeping people indoors, not to mention giant screen TVs and hypnotic video games. But go ahead, blame climate change. And they do. Meanwhile, something called Clean Energy Canada, predictably located on unceded traditional territories and paid by government to nag government, just said, quote, "Today's launch of the federal government's Canada Green Building Strategy shows a clear understanding of the key priorities needed to help affordability-constrained Canadians and our changing climate." In some areas, however, it also lacks an implementation plan to meet the moment, end quote. Gosh, an implementation plan? Do you need those? Are they a key priority? Well, if not, you might get this story out of Australia. Quote, "Households yet again face the prospect of even higher electricity bills after the cost of power jumped more than 20% in the last quarter on the back of a renewable energy shortage and coal-fired power station outages," end quote. Just saying. In the newsletter, we also note that an important difference between climate science and the normal kind is that in climate science, failed predictions don't diminish people's faith in a theory. For instance, on hurricanes. The 2023 season was meant to be nasty, but it fizzled out. So, they predicted horrors for 2024 as well. And it's proving it did too, so we're told, quote, "Here's when hurricane activity is expected to return," end quote. And if it doesn't, well, you just wait for 2025. Or 2026, because we're bound to get lucky someday, as in unlucky, but everything is upside down in the wacky world of climate alarmism. Also, a recent piece, quote, "It's Later Than You Think, Climate-Fueled Extreme Weather Part 3, end quote, by Roger Pilkey Jr., addresses the somewhat recondite mathematical point that if the weather is becoming more unusual, we might not notice it at first. That's because it's naturally variable anyway. Now, there are established statistical methods of looking at how unusual the weather has to get, and for how long, in order to detect a meaningful change in typical conditions rather than just the usual random incidents of wet or dry, calm or windy, hot or cold, and so on, that have made weather forecasting the butt of jokes beyond number. However, when you're looking for trends in things that fluctuate naturally, it turns out that it can take centuries rather than decades, years, or just months to confirm that the weather has gotten worse, or, for that matter, better. So, once again, even if we wish we knew, even if we really need to know, we can't. And making stuff up is no substitute for knowing it. In the newsletter, we also repeat again Jay Budachevsky's democracy-sustaining claim that people are logical, though slowly. Because as the Green New Deal turns from distant shimmering vision to mirage luring politicians into the valley of energy death, the city of Vancouver abruptly dumped its ban on natural gas heating and cooling systems in new homes because it was a hugely expensive pain in the furnace. And even climate alarmists seem to be rethinking their opposition to nuclear power, and even the Canadian government is starting to realize and even discuss publicly how solar panels create a, quote, significant pollution risk, end quote, when it's time to dispose of them. And more realism in a debate is always a good thing. Including because of that offshore wind pollution disaster in Martha's Vineyard, on which even Heatmap admitted, quote, this is the worst possible moment for an offshore wind debacle. Vineyard Wind has given offshore opponents some powerful new ammunition, end quote. Now, they went on to claim that, quote, major errors like blade failures are incredibly rare, end quote, but actually, since it's a new and subsidized technology, we have no idea whether they are or not, but we certainly should be paying attention to it. The Wall Street Journal editorialized snidely that, quote, there is no such thing as clean energy as the liberal gentry on Nantucket are learning after an offshore wind turbine blade snapped and littered beaches with debris. Somehow the uproar among progressives is more muted than after an oil spill or train derailment, end quote. Yes, it is. But still, they are discussing it, and that's progress for progressives, even if we're not out of the windmills yet. In the newsletter this week, we also continue our Cheerful Chart series with a look at global per capita CO2 emissions. And even skeptics should care about them because, in the first place, climate is complicated, so despite our view here at CDN that the problems are overstated and the models are alarmist, it makes sense not to mess around with nature if we don't have to. The other reason is that there is a robust statistical correlation between rising atmospheric CO2 and panicky politicians promoting disastrous climate policies that we need to try to stop. Unfortunately, this week's Cheerful Chart shows that global per capita CO2 emissions have stopped rising and seem to be drifting downward, which means the IPCC's emission scenarios are hopelessly overstated and can be safely ignored, along with their apocalyptic forecasts of the impacts of CO2. And another thing, one surprising aspect of climate science, perhaps more surprising to alarmists than anyone else, is that CO2 on its own doesn't do a lot of warming in climate models. Instead, it causes a bit of warming that supposedly causes extra water vapor to accumulate in the air, and that in turn is meant to cause a lot of heating. That really is what the models say, the alarmist models. But, basic data question, how do we know that extra water vapor should accumulate in the atmosphere? How do we know if it is? Well, it's the usual simple physics. You see, the Clausius-Clapeyron rule says that for every degree warmer the air gets, its potential humidity rises by about 7%. And climate models predict that the air's water vapor content, that's the specific humidity, should rise in step with its potential humidity, meaning that its relative humidity remains constant. But a recent study shows that, especially over the arid and semi-arid regions of the Earth, it's not happening. So, again, the simple physics isn't so simple after all, and, again, it's not as bad as the settled science claimed. Finally, from the CO2science.org archive, radishes to you, Jack. Well, apparently some people like them in a summer salad, and in climate science research. They've done dozens of studies, and the studies have confirmed that, yes, adding 300 parts per million of CO2 to the atmosphere makes radishes about 2/3 bigger, and an extra 600 parts per million bulks them up by 4/5. So, when the climate apocalypse hits, we'll still have radishes. Yum yum. For the Climate Discussion Nexus, I'm John Robson, and I can't even measure my own body temperature to 2 decimal places.
And I said I wasn't going to do that again, but I did. Okay. Well, lots of discussion on the climate there. We appreciate it. But speaking of climate, we're going to have some really great weather this weekend. Really great weather. So get out and enjoy it. Stay positive. Stay safe. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see you until the week following next because we will be off next week. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate you. Looking forward to seeing you again, not this next Monday, but the following Monday. Have a great weekend and have a great week. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Thanks, everyone. We really appreciate you. This is your show on your station each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30, other than next week. So stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. Have a great one, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.